What's up? Welcome to FIFO, Flow In and Flow Out. Danny Marowinski here with my co-host Samnang Man. As a reminder, this podcast is dedicated to you all to help raise the collective vibrations as Samnang and I go through all sorts of different topics around everything from personal development to entrepreneurship. Ultimately, we're trying to figure out how to become better human beings and better business owners and share our stories with you all to help raise the collective vibrations. And hopefully, you guys can get some nuggets of information back to also impact your life. This podcast is released every Monday at 6 a.m., Friday at 4 p.m. So we have 2 episodes per week, and we're starting to bring in some special guests, all sorts of fun things. So Sam Nane, do you want to say anything more on that intro?
Nice work on the intro as always. 10 out of 10. Dang, Danny's always killing it. Even though we had to adjust our show meeting to 12:30 today. Usually it was like 6. So Danny slept through the first meeting.
Yep. Yep. I mean, I failed. So I've been working on this 5 a.m. practice. And if you guys have listened to any of these episodes, I've been really into Stoicism recently. And one of the things I'm doing, Marcus Aurelius talks about even how he struggled getting out of bed, right? And I'm trying to get this extra time for myself to work on things. So, anyways, 5 a.m. hits, and I've been in the process now. I'm no longer hitting the snooze, so that part's working. So I'm turning the alarm off, and then I immediately think to myself, like, this is just your body saying you're tired. You're not actually tired. I did that, and when I got out of bed, it was 6:30, and I was like, oh crap, I slept. So the next step is move my phone away from my bed, so I have to physically get up to turn it off, and that will get me out of bed
There you
to do
go.
it. So that's the next step.
Solution oriented. He's thinking ahead. He already had he already had something to tell the coach and tell the audience. So which is good.
That's it.
So
Got to get better, man. Better every day. That's the goal, right?
we're gonna keep it short
So,
and active for today's podcast as just kind of like a meeting too, but really the discussion that I wanted to have with like Danny and the audience is just like talking about pain points and everything. So I'm putting my first lifestyle package together, and it's gonna revolve more around lifestyle, as in like more working out, more eating healthy, and more mindfulness practice. Right? Those are the 3 things that I'm going to go into, and more into like personal development as well too, more of like the subconscious and like training the mind as well too. But the pain point, as in for something like this, a program like a coaching program or like a nutrition program, what will be some type of pain points that you or your friends might have seen where like there's like a barrier to entry? Is it money, or is it like I'm too scared to step outside this comfort zone, or I just have no idea like even where to start? That's what I'm trying to figure out in like my market research. Like I've gotten some pretty good feedback, and I think the feedback is where perception of time, right? Like I don't have time, I don't have time, I don't have time to commit to going to the gym. That's one big thing that I hear all the time. I don't have time, I don't have enough time. And that's a big pain point. And then money as well, because eating healthier revolves uh eating healthier food is a little bit more expensive than like processed food, right? um and then gym memberships and just changing a whole lifestyle around it, right? So there's this perception of money. What would you kind of think as a pain point to like barrier to entry to say, hey, fuck it, I'm gonna dedicate 30 minutes of journaling, 90 minutes of working out 4 or 5 times a week, and adopting a new healthy nutrition style? That takes time to do, time and investment, mental bandwidth, and money to do it, right? What are the? But we all know that there's all these benefits to it, right? All the studies,
yep.
undeniable that like eating healthy, exercising, doing all this is good for mental health, it's good for productivity. We all know, right? It's not anything unusual now that this is good for everything, productivity,
So why
longevity,
not just do it, right?
right?
So for me, I think, and I think this is where a lot of folks can probably relate. And I think it boils down to we have a hard time with change, I think in general,
Yeah,
across all fronts. It could be business, it could be personal, it doesn't matter what it is, it could be family. But I think in general, we have a hard time with change. And so if I were to go back into my personal experience with this, right? How long did I know that I needed to get out a better handle on alcohol and get it more or less out of my life? Like truthfully, 3 to 4 years, maybe even more,
yeah,
right? Quite a substantial amount of time. So knowing that, and I was conscious of it, right? Like I was aware, I knew that I needed to do it.
yeah.
I knew the benefits are there. Like it's all clear as day, right? Very clear and obvious ROI to that. So why did it take me so long? Um, when I boil it down for myself in that aspect, I needed to, it wasn't so much of understanding that the solution was good. It was, I needed to better understand the problem. So Albert Einstein's like one of his favorite famous quotes,
Yeah.
right? Is like, if you had an hour to solve a problem, I would take 55 minutes understanding what the problem is and 5 minutes of solving it. So how do you solve cutting alcohol out of your life? Well, it's very simple. You cut it out of your life. You stop consuming it, stop buying it, stop consuming it. And
Mm.
that's, so it's a very simple solution, but it was very hard for me to figure out how to do that. Right. And what I learned is I started doing all sorts of little things along the way. It started with go a week sober. Did that. Check. That didn't solve it. Cutting back on drinks. Did that. Check. That didn't solve it. Um, Counting drinks every single day. Did that. Check. That didn't solve it. Talking with recovered alcoholics and things like that. Did that. Didn't solve it. Right. So I tried all of these different areas and all these different aspects, and it really it's kind of like synonymous with all of it, where it's like you have to commit to that change. You have to make that commitment that you're going to change, and that's a hard thing to deal with. And for me, I think the thing that kept me consuming alcohol all those years, even knowing that I needed to make a change and I needed to be better,
Yeah.
was at the time I would never have admitted to this. And I think that's another piece that's very hard. And this is kind of vulnerable, but I was scared of my own stress.
Yeah.
Like I was scared to deal with my own stress myself. And I knew that like alcohol was, if I was stressed, I could drink, I could numb it and put it away. It would still be there. I'll deal with it tomorrow, kind of thing. No big deal. And it wasn't until I finally like understood, really understood what alcohol was to me, what the relationship was, and I was able to identify it before I quit that I have now turned alcohol into some type of a reward for me. And I
Yeah.
was rewarding myself on both positive and negative. So if something happened great in my life, I would drink. If I went on vacation, I would drink. If I did the family outing, I would drink. If we had friends over, I would drink. If I was stressed, I would have a drink. If a deal fell through, I would have a drink. I was using it for everything, and it was a part of every part of my life. And that's when I realized, like, okay, I need to change. Alcohol no longer can be a reward system. And I was adamant and I committed to that. And then I finally cut it out, and I cut it out cold turkey. But it took 4 years of deliberation, 4 years of trying,
But
four
you were
years of hearing about it.
at that when the pain was enough. I think was it because you were like, I need to do it.
It wasn't like I never got in trouble with it, right? So I was never like forced to do it. It was more of I realized like
Is why did it stick? You made a commitment. Is that what you said? And what was the commitment to? Was it your family? Was it yourself? Or was it just like, uh, because quitting alcohol is like whatever, right? But was there something tied to it, like your business
yeah, the life event was the birth of my third son.
or to your third son?
So that was the kind of life event associated with it. But there was a lot of other factors that brought me to that commitment, right? And I think a big
Yeah,
part of that at the time was my business. So my business was suffering. I was in a financially one of the worst positions I've ever been financially, and I was struggling. And I knew that if I'm going to do this business, if I'm going to make this business work, I needed to make me work,
Yeah.
and I needed to become a better human being, right? So that's when I was like, you know what? Birth of my third son, I'm going to go 2 months. First 2 months of his life, I'm cutting it out, and I'm going to do it. And I'm going to try and I'm going to try and replace the urge for fitness to see if I can reward myself for fitness. So literally closed the deal, and immediately after closing the deal, I went for a run, and
Yeah.
I ran like a 5K basically. And I came back and I felt great,
You
right?
changed the word system to,
I changed the reward system.
yeah,
And I had been wanting this new relationship for a very long time. And so that was the original kind of push. And then to continue the path is I started hitting levels of success. And then one of my mentors was like, you should go 6 months. And I was like, well, I've already gone two. Like, I've already been thinking about going longer. Like, why do I need it at this point? So I went six. And
yeah.
now I'm at eight.
The
Right.
benefit,
So, like,
it's a lot for sure. The alcohol, like enough alcohol, and applaud you for being vulnerable and saying all that stuff. And the commitment part is very interesting because I've been kind of meditating and contemplating on that as well too. It's like um, when we do like try to change like these habits, especially when it comes to like working out more and eating healthy, it's like the commitment that people have. It's very shallow almost, or like I just want to get sexy for the summertime. It's very shallow, right?
well, that brings me up to this next point that's really interesting that I think you'll appreciate, right? And that's the vanity aspect of it. So, I, for instance, with my physique. So I've told you from the very beginning in the first podcast, like I want like the Matthew McConaughey with the shirt off kind of
Yeah,
vibe, right? So, okay, so I say that, but why? Why did I want that at the time? And at the time, it was the vanity aspect of it
yeah,
to feel good about walking around my shirt off. Now, granted, I'm not like, I'm not out of shape. I'm not like in the worst shape of my life, but I also know that I could be a lot better. What I realized just recently, like literally within the last like week or two, is the vanity aspect of like having a nice physique is kind of like not nearly as important, nor is it as motivating, right? It's kind of a nice to have. It's like have you ever heard of like when people hit a certain level of success and they buy the supercar for the first time? And we actually had an experience with this. One of my other mentors and an investor in one of my wife's businesses, he hit it big, sold his business for a ton of money, and he went out and he bought a brand new McLaren off the lot.
hmm
He drove it home, and literally by the time he finished driving it home, he was like, I could get rid of this. I'm done with this. I have no need for it. Right. And
he
it's
did
like,
it.
yeah, so it's
Right one.
right. So it's funny though, like it's like we think that these things, and there's like a vanity aspect to it that like we think is like the interesting thing that we want. But then when we get it, we realize
Yeah,
I never really needed it in the first
yeah,
place. So vanity, I think, is shallow. What I realize now is the reason why I want a better physique is because I feel like I've done a really good job of controlling my mind, right? And taking control over my mind. And now I'm working on taking ownership and control over my body. So, what's the best way to show that you have control over your body? Well, by creating your body the way that you want it to be, to master your body,
yeah, yeah,
right? So there's a bigger play to that. Now, if there's something more to it than just having the nice physique and walking around with my shirt off to like tout I'm Mr. In shape and I'm Mr. Successful,
Mm.
that part's ancillary. It's not as important to me. It's more of like I want to be able to show the world that I've mastered my body, and by showing that I've mastered my body and I've mastered my mind is also going to help me with mastering my business and ultimately
yeah.
mastering my life.
I think you hit that on the nail on the head. The point I'm trying to like figure out. I think I've been meditating on it, and then like now I'm starting to find like my ideal clientele and like what the pain points and everything. It's like ideally that is where my idea is. It's where like people know they know it's more than just shallow, starting to understand. Like, it is not just a six pack abs, right? Because like I've gotten six pack. I've been extremely lean, extremely shredded. Right, I've seen the goods and the bads of bodybuilding and everything, right? Or like fitness and stuff. First starting off, you feel like shit. Then you make some progress, and then you feel like you made some progress, and then you don't make any progress. So there's like just like with everything, like business and stuff. There's ups and downs. There's cycles. There's seasons. How I look at like my physical training and everything, but thinking about it as a whole lifestyle package and whole identity shifting, when you talk about commitment, when I say commitment is a good word, a coaching word, is committing to, like when you say commitment, it was almost a commitment to yourself, right? In reality, because you commit to yourself, you know that through like mindfulness practice and like working out, you bring out the best version of yourself when you're doing fairly hard stuff. Like when you're riding your bike, when you're building your business and stuff, when you're exercising, when you're doing that hard stuff, you're really like, when you say controlling the mind, you're controlling everything that you can, and which is extremely helpful in like keeping stress down and being able to manage like demanding like workloads and stuff. So like commitment, commitment, and identity shifting. I think the word that I've been um do you say the word synonymous a lot? Commitment and like identity shifting, changing your identity to become this person that's gonna stick to this plan. It's like you've almost became a philosopher with since the short time I've known you, since doing 14 or 15 podcasts. It's like your whole mind and body kind of like almost changed just speaking to each other and stuff. So it's like, and then like identity shifting, you became a stoic. Like you're starting to talk like a stoic, and it's like almost the same as commitment. Commitment, identity shifting, changing your personality to who this is, to become, to stick to that uh, plan of nutrition, well being, and physical training to become who you want to be and stuff. So I think that's kind of like what I'm developing. I'm just kind of thinking out loud
Sure.
right now. That
So let me share this with you because I think part of this too, like the interest on this, right? And for you, you had brought up to me earlier, and I think for folks that are out there also looking into this, like okay, so you're putting together a package that has a value prop on the back end of it to help folks like myself, where I was, to get myself to the next round and the new playing field, right? To elevate
hmm
um, folks. So how do you get that message out there? How do you talk to people?
yeah.
So let me share this with you and those of you that are listening to this. Let me find it. Here we go. So this is from Sabri Subri, I believe is his name. He owns or he sells the book Sell Like Crazy. He also owns King Kong Digital Marketing, but Sell Like Crazy is where this came from. It's called the Larger Market Formula. So if you just Google Sabri, it's Sabri, Subri, Subry, I believe. Um, Larger Market Formula. You'll see this pyramid that we're referencing, right? So it's a pyramid, and at the very top, you see 3%, and it says buying now. Then it goes 17% information gathering mode. 20% below that on the pyramid is problem aware. And then the bottom of the pyramid is 60% of the audience, which is not problem aware, right? So
I was
when
just
you
learning.
look at this,
I was just
what's
learning
that?
this a coaching call this morning. It's crazy. I hear it again, which is good. It's double
Yeah.
the.
So this is something that's hyper relevant to marketing. It's hyper relevant to also finding people that you can help, right? So
Yeah,
there's really where the bulk of everybody spends their time is on that top 3% that are buying now. That's where all the marketing dollars go into. That's the buying now are people that are like, I'm ready for the change, I'm ready to commit, and now I need to find my vehicle to get me there.
yeah,
It's a very small percentage of the population, and this is true for any industry, right? This isn't just in what we're talking about.
yeah,
But then there's information gathering mode. So information gathering mode is like, I'm problem aware, and now I'm going and seeking for what is my solution, what is where can I commit.
Yeah.
Then you have problem aware. These are folks that just, like, for instance, rewind to me like 4 years ago, and I was like, okay, I got a drinking problem. I need to cut drinking out of my life. And then problem unaware is rewind to me 5 years ago and prior, where it was like, no, I don't have a drinking problem. I'm not an alcoholic. Like, whatever, I drink. So what? So does everybody. Like, why? Like, I'm part of the regular crowd. So how do you market to these people, and how do you find the pain points, right? And the where the a lot of the money is where the money a lot of the money is in this space is in the problem and the unaware, because a lot of less people are targeting that specific area. But to work with people that are problem unaware, that they don't know that they have a problem, or they don't know that they need to make a change, that's where value comes into play,
Mhm.
right? So value comes in the form of, free coaching calls. It comes in the form of the marketing message that we put out there, the nuggets of information that you're putting out there on social media, so on and so forth. And then that's where you can get people to start to ask the question of, like, well, do I have a problem or not?
Yeah.
And then if they say, oh, I do have a problem, I can't.
Mm.
And most people, I would say, in this space have a problem. Even
Yeah.
I have problems now of becoming better. Like, I think that that's the interesting thing about personal development, and as well as entrepreneurship or career growth, right? And career development, that we always have more problems that we're solving. And
Yeah.
some of those things, we're not even sure what the problem is just yet. But if we want to move it to the next level.
You're right.
So if you can bring value there and help educate people and provide resources, that your only transaction that you're asking for at that particular moment is their time, whether it be their 3 seconds for an Instagram clip or Instagram quote, or
Right.
you're asking for a 5 minute commitment to a longer form video. That's where a lot of education can be done, and where you can start to build up on that pipeline. And then the trick is once you get people to start to engage on that level, that's where you have to continually drive value back. At that point, they might become problem aware, right? And a lot of this stuff that you talk about is very synonymous to a lot of different aspects of life. Um, and then once you move beyond the problem aware, then you're going to go start and look for remedies to solve for the problem, and what's available out there. Now, if you're the one who's guiding them to that place in the first place, they're going to have access to you. They might do a little bit more research, but they're probably going to go with you because they have the trust in the first place, and then it
Yeah.
brings them up to the buy now, right? So I think about this often when I think about marketing, messaging, and people's pain points. And my constant battle is, how do I bring value to that 60%, right? How do I bring value there? How do I treat these folks like humans? How do I make it a more enjoyable life and experience for them at that particular
Mm.
stage?
Okay.
Um, for me, I think something that would have resonated faster with me, and give me a sec. Where's my? Hold on one sec. Oh, there it is. So for me, I think if that's why. There we go. So for me, I think had you had I been able to see and connect the dots earlier
Yeah.
of, hey, Danny, if you quit drinking, in 3 months you're going to be in a new place with new revenue streams and everything else, and you're going to be better in business. It's easy to say that. It's hard to connect the dots and get people to see that and believe in that. So,
I think
but
what you said really, because I've been thinking on or this, like making like the marketing message, and I just been getting coached on the marketing material that I do put out. It's almost already solving the problem that they in their head are unaware about. They're unaware about, okay, if I quit drinking, what happens when I quit drinking? You're decision speed increases and stuff, or you just have more productivity at work, and that equates to making more money. I think more of already creating the awareness of like this can lead to real. I think in sales a lot I learned more of like not talking about the technical stuff, but more of like the you do this, this is the benefit, right? And we're
Mhm.
all solve this problem for you, and we already solved it for you through this marketing message. And then whenever you're ready to solve it and work with us, like fix, you already know what's already in the program and what it solves, and it's like targeted specifically for them. That's what I'm getting coached on. And then it's like, and then when you put the program together, and then when you're going for the close, it's like you're already the expert and stuff. I think that's what the strategy is that I've been learning. I've been consuming a lot of Hormozzi's, uh, YouTube, and the value, and you talk about it all the time, like value, 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 value. Like even doing small coaching messages on like Instagram and like Facebook and stuff, that pays off in the long run and stuff. It's like I'm still touching base with everybody and stuff, so it's like, um, yeah, I think literally it's just like this is solving the problem on the fly right now, because this is like my homework assignment for to move forward in my business. It's find ideal niche, the type of client I want to work with, and creating the package and marketing material towards that. It's like I don't think I ever would have figured this out by myself. you know?
Sure. And I think there's something to be said around when you put that marketing message out, right? And so I just put out a thing on Instagram just earlier. I think it was like yesterday or the day before, where I go through this example of like, imagine, and I can elaborate a little bit more on it here, but imagine you woke up this morning and you were blessed with some divine, thing overnight, and now all of a sudden you have an amazing musical talent. You have all the drive. You know, without a sliver of a doubt, that you're about to become a world famous musician, right? And like it's now your life's passion. This all just changed for you, poof, as soon as you woke up, right? Um,
Kind of like what
so
I
what
do.
are you gonna do?
kind
What's that? Yeah,
of like what I do.
exactly. So
I'm gonna be a professional bodybuilder, life coach, philosopher,
that's it, bro.
podcast.
So you have this drive, right, to do it, and you know that you have a lot of value to bring to the world. So naturally, what are you going to do? You're going to try and book your first show. And typically when we do that, and this is synonymous back to like starting a business, you're going to start to put together your business model. You're going to get your website up, so on and so forth, right? This is also true whether it could be a long form established business and a large business, and you're starting up another area of revenue, right? But you're going to do a lot of this prep work, and then you go to launch. And oftentimes what happens, I think very rarely does it happen where when you go to launch and your launch exceeds your expectations. I think that happens. I think that's a much rarer situation for a lot of folks. I think normally what happens is when you go to launch, it wildly under wildly underperforms your expectations, right? Where, and think about it, even relevant to you, right? So it's like, okay, I'm gonna have 200 people by launch, and then you ended up with like 20.
Yeah.
Now, there's two things that can happen, and you're left with two decisions. And decision one is, if this is back to the idea of like standing up a show, right? And you show up in the audience, and there's only two people in the audience, and you're expecting 2,000. You either play the show distracted because with your most recent failure, knowing that you just failed based off of what failed against your expectations, which is truly a false perception of failure. It's not a real failure because people did show up, right? So you have this your expectation wasn't meant. Therefore, you feel like you failed. You do a subpar performance and you like tuck tail and get off stage, right? And then you go back home and you beat yourself up, and maybe you think about better ways that you can pack the show, and then you get back and stuck on like, what could I do to pack the show? Meanwhile, you're neglecting the two people that actually showed up,
Yeah.
right? And the other way around it is you show up, and if you practice gratitude and you're like, oh my gosh, two people showed up to see me, and you blow them out of the water. You put on a hell of a performance, you give them an encore, and then maybe you even follow up with those people and you give them over the recording of the show. and you give them all the, your first album for free and so on and so forth, right? They're going to be so overwhelmed with value that they're going to go spread it out to the world. But more importantly than just that is the fact that your mindset, you're going to feel so good about what you did and the amount of value that you brought to those two people that you're only going to try and go do it again. You're going to get a positive reinforcement on that. And guess what? When you go to book the next show, you're probably not going to put as much time, energy, or effort into promoting it. You're just going to go try and get another 2 people, 4 people into the show. And you're going to now you're going to be like, I need to do more shows.
Mhm.
And now next thing you know, you do another show and those original 2 people show up and they bring 2 of their friends. Now we're at 6 people at the show, plus another round of folks that come out. You do the same level of value and performance backwards, and it's only going to start to snowball and grow exponentially on that front.
Yeah.
So I bring that up as a really interesting example because I think about that even in my space when I bring on, our clients. So we have 2 very large paying customers and lead generation. And right now, my focus is to blow it out of the water with them from a value perspective for two core reasons. One is A, to keep them as a customer, but then B, because more importantly than keeping them as a customer is, let's say that I give them all the nuggets that they need and they take everything that they have because we do it all for them. It's all done for them and it's their IP at the end of the day. They take that and they stand up their own operation. They go, hey, Exit Built, we don't need you anymore. We're going to do it on our own. But they take what we taught them and they grow and expand upon that. That's a win for us because they're going to start to sing it to another round of, they're never going to forget on how they got there in the first place, right? So I think that there's something to be said as far as like, when you first put out those messages, if you put out a message where it's when you're talking about the problem or the not problem aware, the 60%, right? You should craft the message in such a way that I would suggest that we get them to question,
Get them.
do they have a problem or do they not? Right. And you don't have to be as forward with that, but maybe something along the lines that just gets them to think about something slightly different, or
You
they
know,
can put on a different lens to look at a situation in a slightly different way. Right.
I think there was like one topic. I think I was on a coaching call, and it was like about like I don't know who it was, but it was talking about like guys and like erectile dysfunction. And I was like, maybe like alcohol and understanding the benefit of how it ties to erectile dysfunction. It's like that's a big like that's a big problem. I was like, and people don't talk about it. And I was like, it might be a little controversial and stuff, but maybe I could provide support and research behind that stuff. I'm pretty sure I could find and develop some kind of marketing material behind that kind of stuff. So it's like,
Well, that's interesting, man. And I'll share a very personal story on that, but I don't mind. That's the nature of this podcast. But when I was heavily drinking, me and my wife in bed, I would last a very long time,
mhm,
maybe even too long, right? And there were some nights that it just obviously didn't even work because I had too much alcohol in my system. So I used to just think like, oh, it's my stamina, but it wasn't, right? It was because I was consuming so much alcohol, and it definitely affected my life. It affected my personal life with my wife, and it affected, my mentality too. Like, is there something wrong with me? So 100%, especially in like our age range, like we're not 22 and what we used to be as men. Our bodies change, things change, hormones change, all that stuff changes. And as you continue to add toxicity and poison into your system, it does affect that. Right.
yeah,
Um, but it's one of those that you're not wrong in the sense that, first off, if there is any man out there that's experiencing this, it's very clear that there's something's not right, right? Because you can typically remember what it was like prior to having this issue, and then
hmm
when you do have the issue, but it's very embarrassing and it's
yeah,
scared to talk about, right? So that's definitely a good angle where you could talk about how that affects it. And then the remedy, not just is quitting the alcohol, but then also, just like I experienced, and you'll know this as well from a biochemical standpoint, is when you start working out and you start doing things, your testosterone levels go up. And as your testosterone levels go up, everything else starts working like you were a 22-year-old again, right? So,
love
no,
it.
I think you're spot on that angle, right?
You know what Arnold says? The two best exercise for life is pumping and humping.
Humping and humping, man. That's
So,
it.
and I was like, I'm always thinking about it. I was like, how I'm always like, dang, don't skip leg day, don't skip leg day, because it produces so much testosterone in the body, natural testosterone, and sleep as well too. So, and then quitting the alcohol too. It's like one thing that like I know for sure that I could find research and support it with like whatever, because I know I personally do it myself. It's like I want to stay like the vitality, the longevity and stuff. It's like a big to me. It's like a big thing. But like I think we're talking about like niching down and everything. So like I've made some really good progress on like my end as a business and stuff of like who I'm facing and like what markets I want to test to. So I think it was a very productive meeting. I think we wanted to keep it short today. So is there anything you wanted to ask me? Um,
I think the not so much an ask, but maybe this is and I think you're already on this path, right? But one thing that I love when I'm coming up with messaging, specifically to marketing, and is there's a wide variety that you can do this, but you need to try them. You need to get immediate feedback. And the way that you get immediate feedback is by you trying the message out on like a one-to-one basis, meaning call somebody out of the blue
yeah,
and throw it out there to them. See how it resonates, right? It could also be talking to a stranger out in the world, going to Starbucks, whatever else that,
yeah,
going to the grocery store, talking to the cashier and just say like, "Hey, can I take 10 seconds out of your life? I want to tell you about this thing that I'm doing. I love your feedback." Most people are going to give you the time of the day. It's going to give you a chance to try out the message with them and see what they say. See what they say. See how they respond. If they go, "I don't know what you're talking about," obviously you're not clear enough. If they say "F you," obviously you're too offensive. If they say, "That's interesting. Can I can you tell me more?"
yeah,
Maybe you're onto something, right? And then, but I think there's that piece of it that a lot of people miss in marketing, especially in the digital space, is we just think, well, if I put the message out there and people will start to listen to it. And then it gets even worse in big business. Like we see it all the time where people are dumping ad dollars into it. They're spending a ton of money and they're not getting any results. So what we do, literally what we do in my practice is when we come up with a message that we think is going to work and resonate, we will go out and cold call upwards of 1,000 people or
yeah,
more and try that message. And then we quantify everything. How
uh,
many calls were how many numbers did we pull were the right number? Of the right numbers, how many conversations did we have? Of the conversations, how many people asked for more information? Of the people that asked for more information, how many of them committed to a meeting? Of the
mm,
meetings, how many of them committed to a follow on meeting? And so on and so forth, right? So, like, getting that granular data on your message is only going to help support you and getting the message out there at scale. But you need to take it to the very roots of it, which is no different than door knocking in sales, right? And just talking to human beings and seeing if the message resonates with the human being. Does it catch their attention? Are they willing to engage it? Do they find any value in it?
yeah,
Right. And a great example of this, just to kind of give you one last little piece of it, is think that you're a comedian and you're trying out a new joke,
mm-hmm,
a new script for a joke. And this is going to be part of your, Netflix debut showcase show. So you're not necessarily trying to go out there in the world to tell it all, but how do you test the material? Well, you do just that. You talk to random strangers. You
that's true,
do
man.
it in random situations where you're just getting the generalized idea of the message. Do they laugh or do they not?
Yeah,
If they laugh, maybe you're onto something, right? Um, so that would be my suggestion for you as you look at this and as you tackle this space. Come up with a string of messages that you think would resonate with your ideal audience as you're boiling that down, and then go call those people and talk to them, and ideally try to find a lot of them that are total strangers to you, and try the message out on a one-to-one basis and see what they say. Because as you start to find out what message works, once you find one that works, well, now you're ready to scale. And you
yeah,
can put that into social media and then you can run paid ads and so on and so forth. And it's going to start to drive it. And
yeah.
you're going to find out a lot about what they value, right? What is their pain point and how are you offering value to that?
Yeah. One thing that you really helped me with, just making sure that I understood that I was in the growth phase and stuff. The growth phase, you do certain things that are different than in the scaling phase, and you separate and made me understand that, because I think before I knew I wanted to scale, but when and uh, what to expect when I do scale, or kind of what do I focus on the growth stage right now, and focusing really on the growth stage, knowing in the back of my head, like you told me that, and my coaches told me that as well too. Is like realizing, trusting the process, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you telling me that and having my coaches say that is saying like, okay, this is going to save you a lot of time that I might have potentially just started doing, um, putting the first package out and not knowing how to market it and stuff, and just being like, is it the package or is this? So it's saving a lot of time, which is awesome. And time in business is the commodity that you have to look at. It's either you front time for money to speed up the process, and that's what it is.
Well,
So
look at it. Here's a really simple way to look at it, right? Imagine that I had the big red easy button. You could push it, okay? And as soon as you push it, you have 24 hours, and now you have packed an auditorium full of 100,000 people are showing up. All the other legwork's done. They're
uh-huh.
showing up to see Samnang Man, right? Now, if you push that button and you take that, you have to go show up no matter what. So you have to go deliver with everything that you currently have. And if you were to do it right down to basically tomorrow, you were going to do that big presentation to 100,000 people. Do you think that you are adequately prepared well enough, in the sense that you've talked to enough human beings and that you've pushed out your message enough that you are 100% going to deliver a ton of value to those people in that meeting? And are they willing to come back and get more from you? Or you have that big auditory impact in a year from now. And in the process of building that up, you go out and you physically talk to a
Yeah,
thousand, 10,000, 50,000 people,
yeah,
right? If you do all of more of that legwork and more of that linear kind of transactional work of one to one, of like reaching out and talking to people, by the time that you go hit the big red easy button and now you have an auditorium packed, now you're at the, the Hormozy or the, um, oh, what's his name? Um, Tony Robbins, something like that, stage. Well, those guys know without a doubt that they're going to bring value to a large audience because they've done it enough with a small audience.
yeah,
And they've done it enough even before a small audience. They were doing it with individuals,
yeah,
right? So it's like and it's that's how you have to do it. It's the same idea when you start a brick and mortar business. The first thing that you think that you should service when you start a brick and mortar business, if you were to start a burger shop right now, the very first thing that you should focus in on is how can you bring value to the neighborhood that brick and mortar business lives in. Once you kind of start to understand how you're bringing value to the neighborhood, then it might be worthwhile to introduce the community, right? And get the community involved in it. And then maybe and only then, if you've mastered both the neighborhood and the community, now you might open your second location into another ancillary neighborhood and you do the same thing until all of a sudden now you have a region,
yeah,
right? And a district and so on and so forth. And it's so true when it comes to this digital space, and especially in this and where you're at, you have a community, you have 20 folks, right? You have your neighborhood right now. How do you bring value back to that neighborhood? And how do you go test the marketing message on an individual basis to other people in other neighborhoods
yeah.
and then grow it that way, right? That to me is probably
Organic.
the best way I can describe it.
It's still very organic, because there's like human, like when you talk about human centric marketing and stuff, it's like I'm still as a human thinking about like the pain points that you guys might have and asking you directly because you're a human. And I was like, that's human pain point. That's the work that I'm doing behind the work, or behind in the marketing message as well too. It's
You're
fun.
doing the right thing, man. You're asking, right? And I think that that's step one, and that's where you just have to do that a lot.
Yeah.
And I would make it a target. I mean, look, to give you an idea, my team, we can make 30 calls an hour.
Uh-huh.
That's what we're averaging, 30 calls an hour. So if I have 8 hours that I dedicate to this in one day, that's 240 phone calls, right? So that's just to give you an idea of how much you can hit from a linear perspective within a given day.
Yeah.
So I would give you.
Are you
Oh,
in the
good.
scale of your business right now, or
What's
still?
that?
Are you in the growth or in the scaling process right now? You're in the
We are entering into scale.
scale. Okay.
So
General.
we've been growing,
Uh,
and now I have like kind of the core team and my rock star team, and now we're looking to scale. So we're trying to keep the same amount of folks but bring on more business around it, which means
yeah.
that we need to become more efficient in our processes to service more people. So we're entering into scale right now. we were
Okay.
in grow for we were in grow for the last, like, really like 7 months or so. It took us 7 months of really focusing on growth, which meant not just finding the business opportunities, but also finding the talent to support the product delivery.
Yeah.
So that was the grow end. And now I have the team that I have confidence in can deliver. So now I'm going into scale. So I'm saying, okay, what's our capacity? How many can we take on at the different tiers that we're doing? And at what point does the scale cap out at capacity to where everybody has the right lifestyle, but now we have the revenue hitting for what our capacity is, and then we'll enter back into a growth. So it's
Right.
cyclical, right? You go grow and then you scale, and then
Yeah.
you grow again and then you scale, and so on and so forth until you're at a point where, your scales are now insane on what you're doing.
Yeah. It kind of like compounds, I guess, over years. Is that kind of the thought process?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Cool, man.
100%.
Is there? I think you mentioned you shot me a message earlier, possibly introducing some of my service to some of your coworkers or your company
Yeah.
as well. And that actually was one. It's funny, like Danny messaged me, so just stuff that I think he's been meditating, and he just messages me, and I do the same. And I was like, well, I really was kind of thinking about the same thing as well too, but maybe not immediately. But like I was talking about reaching out to like executives of companies where they're trying to instill like healthier lifestyles into their work and employees and stuff, knowing that this type of lifestyle helps increase like productivity and creativity, and working with executives that really understand that. And I was like, okay, maybe Danny is definitely one person that likes the healthier lifestyle and could see the benefits that it has and stuff. So it's like, maybe you let me know kind of like your thoughts about that, and then I'll meditate and we could catch back up next week about it, or on Friday and stuff, or what I thought about it. Huh?
Yeah, let's do this because I do have to drop. I got a hard stop. So let's do this. Let's put that as a thought for the next talk. I know we have a guest, or we have a guest coming on. We have Brent
Yeah.
coming on Friday, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, so let's do this. Maybe we'll sync back up. We could maybe film an extra one this week, but I'm happy to share my thoughts on that and how that could benefit. But it all boils back down to, my company culture and the culture that we're trying to cultivate for our staff, which is to not have to make them feel like it's work-life balance, but that work supports their life, and that is the balance, right?
Yeah.
And that the work is like, it's not like, I want to get them into a better lifestyle and enjoy their day to day, and ultimately they're going to become more productive, and I know that for a fact. So the idea is like, can we put together, like, if they had a resource like you that would basically be a benefit, the company would essentially pay you for your time and give them access to you.
Yeah.
That was kind of the angle that I was thinking that might be a really cool way of introducing a benefit. And then the way that we could break that business model down, I think there's a wide variety of ways, right? Even down to like an electoral thing where it may just be that the employee themselves, they can opt into it, much like a health benefit, and it just gets deducted off of their pay, and pay goes back to you, but that comes off of their monthly, weekly pay.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily see it, but they get the added benefit from it. So it's not like a monetary commitment that they have to cut a huge check, which is harder to do. It's just, hey, would you like access to this benefit for a couple months? You can turn it on, turn it off as much as you'd like,
I mean,
but then it gets you access to it.
yeah, you really like explaining that side with the benefits. Like I have, you have an HR lady at your company.
No,
You
no.
ask yourself the research and stuff about how you could deduct this and
I
stuff.
I'd have to look at the details, so I'll let you dig into that. But hey, man, listen, I do got to drop. I've been pushed this meeting off. I've been late to it a bunch, but
No problem.
so I'm gonna wrap us up here. This is FIFO, Flow In, Flow Out. Danny Marowinski, Sam Nang Man. New episodes coming out every Monday at 6, Friday at 4. We are here to help try and raise the collective vibration. Sam Nang and I got together a couple weeks back, a couple months back now, and just
Yeah.
got a conversation, both sharing personal development stories. And then he was like, hey, man, let's flip record on and let's turn this into a podcast. So here we are. We're authentic. It's real. We do all of our prep and everything during the podcast. There's really not much that we talk about outside of the podcast. And that's kind of the goal of this, right? Is to give you guys the most authentic experience as we are growing ourselves, our business, and our life.
Yeah. Great job, Danny. Appreciate you and everything and all the coaching and stuff.
All
Thank you
right,
guys.
brother. We
All right.
will sync up soon.
Okay. Bye bye.
See you, man.